It's a full moon in Aries. If you are new here, welcome. If you are not, welcome. If you are day one, thank you so much for supporting me on this wild roller coaster ride of spiritual awakening, ascending above our traumas. This full moon is definitely coming in hot, okay? And you may find yourself being more temperamental, more easily agitated. Maybe it's the small things, it's walking in the kitchen and somebody left the refrigerator open. It's just like, if that's happening for you, give yourself time to do some breath work and get that energy moving through you. So I like to growl. Growling is a form of sound healing and tuning that you can do for yourself to process all of this fire energy that's coming in. And as this is happening, that's not the only celestial alignment that may be impacting us. So, without further ado, let me get into what we're about to do and let you know what's going on with your intuitive Akashic update. So this Friday, today, as I'm recording this, the full moon is in Aries, and we're being called to embody our sovereignty. We're being called to release hesitation to being authentic. This moon is another supermoon, meaning it's closer to Earth than a typical full moon is, so the effects are more intense. Aries is a powerful sign, and this energy is pushing and pressing us to choose our paths, not based on external pressure, but what our heart truly wants. Some of the other placements would be the North Node, which is also in Aries, and it's being squared by Pluto. This is just stripping away anything that is no longer benefiting us on an emotional level and at a soul level. The astrological placements right now are helping us to recalibrate, to recall the parts of us we lost, to recall the parts of us that are actually going to replace the false self parts of us that we created. A lot of our personality traits are actually strategies to cope with our traumas. And this is what we are healing. Now the North Node, it's in Libra, and it's conjunct, which means it's aligned with the dwarf planet Eris. And Eris is known as a very powerful, outspoken, brazen goddess. She tells the truth. What truths is this energy whispering to you? Because life can sometimes position us where we're moving so fast, trying to keep up with everything happening, trying to check every box off on our list of tasks, trying to keep up with our social life, family gatherings, friends wanting to see us and hook up and talk and all of these things. And it can be overwhelming because when you are incarnated here and you have agreed to awaken from anything, even if it's something you once believed to be true, if that is no longer resonating with your soul, not talking about your logic, your reasoning, your subconscious programming from your upbringing, from your experiences, your environment, I'm talking about your soul is communicating to you your truth. Eris is like the warrior goddess with our soul right now, letting us know there are some things that you might have to surrender. And I think some of us have been working so hard to try to make our life comfortable, that we have lost the significance of things that pull us out of our comfort zone to trying to be comfortable. And I get it. I got a lot of Venus energy in my chart. I am a Virgo rising perfectionist, healer, warrior, feminine energy. I'm a Libra sun, more feminine energy, but very mental. And I process things very slowly. I take my time with making decisions. And sometimes I don't make decisions at all. And the universe has to press on me to do so. You might resonate with this. It's not all just astrology. It's your experiences as well that shape you. So if something is being shaken from your hands right now, if something is no longer ringing as true, you don't have to try to make your mind make it make sense. Surrender your mind. Don't try to understand everything about you. Seek to embrace everything about you. Observe, investigate, but don't judge. Now, with this positioning of the North Node aligned with planet Eris, I've also been talking about this on my Patreon for the VIPs of the New Earthers, New Versers, about the new strand that they have named Eris. How ironic is that, huh? And as we are starting to see more truth tellers come forward, Eris also represents discord and strife. Discord and strife at face value can be put into a box of harmful, negative vibes, toxic. But all discord and strife isn't created equally. Some discord is necessary for order to occur. Nature has its cycles and seasons, and so do we. Sometimes the truth can create discord and strife, but only for a time. Whatever you may be dealing with right now, you will not be in this space forever. This is temporary. If you're in a space that's uncomfortable, just know that it's temporary. You have seasons. It can't rain every day. It can't rain forever. Look forward to the sun coming out, but practice dancing in the rain while it is, because there may come a time where we don't see rain for a long time, and things start to feel dry. And I think a lot of us in our relationships are noticing areas where it just feels dry. It just feels flat. Maybe the champagne ain't got the bubbles popping no more, and it just don't taste the same. It don't have the same feeling. It doesn't offer the same sensations. Many of us created our relationships from a subconscious, unconscious place prior to our awakening. So what you may be experiencing in your relationship that seems to be misaligned or uncomfortable, it's not there to make life difficult for you, to punish you. Our partners aren't trying to make life difficult and punish us, even if at face value it seems that way. What's happening is the 3D consciousness that a lot of us created our bonds with is being shaken up to give space for the new to enter. So if that's happening, it doesn't mean that you made a bad decision, no mistakes. I don't believe in bad decisions. I don't believe in, this polarized thinking of good and bad. The higher level of perceiving this would be to see things as beneficial or not. The universe usually moves in a very neutral way. And this is the reason why people who seem to be really wicked people maybe aren't struggling financially. It's like, I feel like I'm a great person, but I'm struggling in some areas. And I know people who ain't great people, and they ain't going through as much as I'm going through. So with that Libra energy that we're in, sometimes it can cause us to compare ourselves to other people, other situations. But again, that is a form of discord in your perspective. So instead of trying to fix everything, how about you use the PRP practice, the positive reframe practice, and perceive your situation in a way that is beneficial for you. So a great example. Okay. Let's say that in your relationship, it just seems like you're not really on the same page. Your values are shifting and changing. Your beliefs are shifting and changing. And maybe your partners is shifting and changing in a different way. According to the old earth consciousness, this means that we can't be together anymore. Or this means that we're not meant to be together, right? These are some of the meanings that is a automated way of perceiving situations. And ultimately, what causes the imbalance is the meaning that we are assigning to things. So if you're in a relationship and there's abuse happening on any level, it doesn't mean that I'm saying, oh, that's sacred. Take as much of the abuse as possible. No, definitely not. You want to use your discernment and your intuition with this. But what I am saying is this. Any spiritual-minded person that goes through difficulties in life is being initiated into oneness with themselves. And a lot of us look to our partners to fill in certain voids within us. And it does us a disservice. It impedes upon our sovereignty to expect for certain needs to be met by someone else. So you can consider relationship difficulties at this time as something showing up to initiate you into a divine oneness with your true self. Because when a well stops giving you water, you're going to do one or two things. You're going to keep looking at that well, expecting water, getting frustrated and mad, kicking it, throwing rocks down in it. Ain't none of that you're doing going to make no water come. Let me tell you, I have tried. And I don't let go and give up easy. Okay? I will overstay my welcome most of the time, trying to make things happen and fix things. So you could do that. But while you're thirsty and the sun is beating down on you and your energy is going towards frustration, over time, just like milk that sits out at room temperature for too long, it turns into something else. And if you're constantly being aware of what you're not getting from your partner and it causes frustration, then the resentment is actually the outcome of the alchemy, maybe unintentionally, that you're doing. So if what you're observing is bringing up emotions of anger and frustration, pain, even grief, learning how to work with that within yourself without expending energy where it's not necessary is going to be conducive. And this is what we are being supported right now, learning how to do. And it doesn't matter when you come across this video. I find that when I am sharing these channeled messages from the Akash, it's outside of time and space. And ultimately, the Akash basically means space. So time is radial, it's not linear. So this message can resonate with you no matter when you find it. So just work on your perception and the meaning that you're assigning to things. Now, the second thing that you could do is shift your attention from that well that used to have water, but now it's dried out. Not have to judge it. You don't need to judge it as bad or it's wicked. It's toxic. It hates you. It's after you, because this puts you in a victim mindset. And victim mindsets will attract more people, places, and things outside of you that's going to reflect that mindset. So the key to shifting is to shift your awareness, shift your attention, shift what you are observing and or the meaning of what you are observing. So I stood at that dry well. I grieved the fact that that well was dry. I processed my anger, again, grunting, growling, screaming in a pillow, maybe taking a walk, finding somewhere to scream, depending on where you live. We are in the underworld, the Kali Yuga, and it's triggering for people who aren't doing this shadow work. So maybe you don't want to scream outside, but, get in your car and take a ride and let out a scream. Like, move that energy through you, right? This is what I teach in the OBB strategy. You observe what's coming up, and you allow the energy to be in motion in a way that serves you. So process that. If you need to grieve, there are typically 7 phases of grief, depending on what, which philosophy or which psychological teachings you're looking at. But do some research on different phases of grief and see, am I in one of these? And what can I do to make the best out of this? So for me, I identified that I had come through the denial process and I was in acceptance. So what helped me to embrace and be with my grief and not, have to make grief mean that I'm a failure, or that I made a mistake. Just releasing and surrendering those meanings that I was assigning to the fact that I was grieving changes in my relationships with people. Once I leaned into it, and this is the key, and you want to have a support system, you want to have, some accountability, maybe accountability partner. You want to have these things, okay? I'm not telling you to just lean into grief all alone, because a lot of us have tried to do things all alone, and we're being called to collaborate, create tribes, communities, connect with our soul tribe. And so by leaning into the emotion, resisting the urge to judge it, being with it, loving yourself, hugging yourself, catering to yourself, massaging your feet, massaging your body with some oil, using aromatherapy, color therapy, breath work, journaling, working with crystals, working with nature, working with water. I love to work with water during the full moon. You can work through the grief, and then once you have done that, you will notice that you're fostering a more authentic relationship with your own self. And once you start doing that work, the universe is going to give you more of that. So that dry well will begin to produce water. And it will no longer be something that has been assigned to someone else to do for you, because you're learning how to do it for yourself. And when you learn how to do things for yourself, to give the love to yourself that you crave from someone else, the universe will get behind you like none other. I'm telling you. And the universe will create water in a dry well once you realize that you have the capacity to call forth water. You have the capacity to rain dance until rain comes. This full moon, with all of the other astrological placements that I've mentioned and haven't mentioned, it can amplify these things that's happening in our lives. And so by shifting our focus, by observing our patterns that have been unconscious up to the point of awakening, and now little by little, like an onion, and the layers being peeled back, we're noticing our unconscious patterns and behaviors. They're coming to light. The full moon illuminates, bring forth light. The full moon is also a time of death, of release, of surrender. So by surrendering, by allowing endings to happen, not trying to force them to not end, not trying to force them to end sooner than they're scheduled to, because divine timing is a schedule, and we have used so much force and so much energy just trying, and it creates struggle, it creates suffering, and this is the strife that's not necessary. Okay? So you're not going to be able to ignore your unconscious patterns. And you won't just see them coming up in you, but because we are in the age of noon, the primordial waters, which is a very dark black water, the reflection is more clear to see. So you may be feeling it strongly, or you may start to witness other people around you who are feeling it strongly. Okay? And this is one of the most exciting times to be alive, y'all. I know it can be uncomfortable when I'm telling you, when you got your tools, when you have your spiritual routines, when your diet is supporting you, when you're taking care of yourself, you're resting, bathing, these simple things, cleaning up your space. If you're dealing with chronic fatigue, exhaustion, pain, discomfort, you're taking the time to stretch and love on your body. When you start to do these things, the growth acceleration that's already happening because of the timing that we incarnated here on the planet right now is going to be reflected as well. And so you will start to see relationships that are reflection of the authentic self you're connecting with. And you want to open up to see that other people around you may be having trouble as well. And maybe they're not communicating it in a healthy way. Maybe they just shut down and don't share it at all. This is a time to look on others with the same compassion that we're learning to look on ourselves with. I don't believe in a philosophy of treating people how I want to be treated. No, I treat me how I want to be treated. I treat others the way that they deserve to be treated according to their behavior. And this helps me to have healthy reciprocity in my relationships. So there may be this thought that flows through your mind that says, that's selfish, but it's not. Selfishness is, in my mind, defined by an activity, behavior, or belief that only serves you and brings harm to others, potentially. That's selfishness. But self-love is a very thin line between self-love and self-care and selfishness. Because we have existed in a very unbalanced society that is just founded on a toxic culture, founded on the patriarchy, founded on this very misogynistic energy. This particular full moon and the placements is bringing in so much feminine energy to the planet that we actually have the capacity to have compassion for others in ways that we couldn't before, because we're developing that compassion for the parts of ourself that we repress, denied, or simply do not like. This is a time of expansion of our perception, our consciousness. And with that expanded perception, with what we call the opening of the third eye, can you have compassion for what you are seeing that once was an unconscious pattern? Because noticing these patterns can be uncomfortable. And really quickly, one that I noticed about myself, I have a lot of 0-degree placement in my natal chart. And anytime you have a lot of zeros, there's a lot of lessons that you're learning around boundaries. But that circle can also be viewed as a circular mirror. And so people have a tendency to project the parts of them they don't like onto me. And because of my own personal traumas, big T, little t, I became a codependent people pleaser who seeks to take care of others before myself. So what once was perceived as selfish is actually self-love for me, but it's different for everybody. So you want to ask yourself, am I treating me the way I know I deserve to be treated? And am I treating others the way they are showing me they deserve to be treated? And until others show me something different, I'm going to treat them accordingly so that I can create healthy boundaries, a healthy sacred circle around myself, and protect myself as I am going through these transformations. This is a time that we're being called to live by our own code, because when you start to take care of yourself in this way, the reason it's a selfless act is because when your cup is full, you can give to others without the risk of resentment or feeling underappreciated. Because when you don't really have it to give, and you allow people to pressure you, society to pressure you, and maybe your own inner critic to pressure you to give to people what they are not or cannot reciprocate to you, you set yourself up to be deficient and depleted in every way, and eventually that leads to resentment. And eventually you start to feel like people are always mistreating you. You don't know why, and you deserve to be treated better. So guess what? Treat yourself better. Don't expect them to do it. Because again, we're all living in our own holograms of what we perceive to be truth. This is a cognitive distortion. It's a confirmation bias, a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we're healing. That's okay. But a lot of us do project. A lot of us reflect. And then we reject what we're being shown in that reflection. We may have a tendency to project it onto other people. So not only do people project onto me, but sometimes I project on others. But the crazy thing is, because of me being a recovering codependent, I do it in reverse. I project people's highest potential onto themselves to the point of being blinded to the red flags. So again, this is all about balance and what is resonating with you. This is the time to take some chances to be unique. Step out of fear and into trust, because trust ultimately heals fear. Self-trust. A lot of us don't feel like we can trust people. That's such a beautiful space to be in. What, Campson? How is that beautiful? Because it definitely do not feel good. I get it. But when you cannot depend on others to be trustworthy, you have one or two options. You can either stand there at that dry well, keep kicking it, throwing rocks in it, being mad, angry, just leaking your life force energy. Or, door number 2, you could develop more trust with yourself. Develop more trust in the love that you're giving yourself. Because even if people feel like you're mistreating them, even if people feel like you're, even if you feel like people are taking you for granted, right? Even if you feel like some people in your life, it's a mistake for them to be in your life. If you cultivate trust for yourself, then you will trust spirit more, and you will see that you can't make a bad decision. You might take a longer way of getting there, but we're all going to get where we are divinely ordained to arrive to. It's just a matter of when, but it is definitely happening. It's not possible. It's probable. It's likely. Okay? Now, hopefully over the last few weeks during the new moon, I did do a channeled message here. If you missed it and it's your first time listening to me, go back and check that out. But we were being called to do some deep inward work, to do some shadow work and see if we can integrate the things that we discover about our shadow self, our wounded inner child, right? And the ability to stay in integrity comes from knowing yourself, and integrity means what feels true for me, I will stand on, even if it's not true for others, even if it's making other people uncomfortable, because my power is located in my truth, not in others' perception of me. We cannot take ownership of the way other people perceive us in their mind and actually live a life where we do trust ourselves, where we do trust the process. Some of us just need to take some time to get out of other people's business. Other people's perception of you is their business. Now, I'm not saying if somebody is bringing something to your attention and it may require some reflecting, to see if it's true or not and to just be dismissive to people. But you don't have to put a copyright on someone else's criticism of you. Okay? You don't have to trademark the way someone else feels that you're troubling them. One of my go-tos when I'm starting to feel this, because I tend to be a sacred rebel, even when I'm not trying to. And the codependent in me really does try to acquiesce and go along to get along and assimilate. But that divine feminine part of me that has risen, there is no controlling me. There is no manipulating me. There is no more guilt tripping me because I trust myself, So my ability to stand in my power, to stand in my integrity, it's what allows me to be more assertive because I trust myself. And it's okay for other people to not trust me or not perceive me in a way that I would like for them to. I'm going to tell you a love language that has been a strong love language for me. I call it dark love. Dark love is the opposite of light love. It's depth. It includes the shadow repressed parts of us that we have learned how to accept and love. And then we can do it with others once we are doing it with ourselves. So when people clearly are feeling a way about something that I'm doing or change or whatever it may be, I love to use it as an opportunity to show them how expansive my capacity to love them, even when they're not in agreement with who I am. And I would simply say something like, I understand that you aren't really feeling me right now, and that's okay. Because maybe at one point in your life, somebody did not honor the way you were feeling and tried to tell you that what you're feeling is wrong or unacceptable. And in this moment, I want to hold space with you and let you know your feelings are valid. And I'm not going to dismiss them. And you have the sovereign right to feel and perceive me any way you want to. I honor that because you are a sovereign, authentic individual. And it would be very unloving of me to try to change the way you're perceiving me. And I don't seek to dominate you. I don't seek to control your perceptions. And I hope that in this moment, this feels like love to you because somebody is appreciating the fact that you are a sovereign being and you are entitled to your own perceptions of me. Can you feel the peace that comes in with those words? Now, even though they may be feeling a way about you, you just took that situation and you alchemized it in the moment. And you transmuted a shadow into a superpower. You turned pain into purpose. And this allows you to hold on to your integrity and the person that you are becoming as you discover these deeper truths within you. I really don't know a comeback to that. And you can word it however you want to. If you want to take this back and write it down and maybe word it how it resonates with you and create it as an affirmation. And for those of us who are uncomfortable with being rejected, being judged, mistreated, criticized, this is a really good exercise so that you're allowing yourself to have these experiences. You're not trying to avoid conflict. You're not trying to avoid being criticized because that turns us into liars. that turns us into people who use their false self to try to dodge criticism. And instead of it, you lean into it and you turn it into something else. You turn it into a reason to give more love to others and to yourself. Your autonomy is important. And with this full moon, if there was ever a warrior feminine bringing in liberation within the moon's placement, it's now. Aries is all about the self, And a lot of women, we had to give up our true selves to exist in a man's world. And a lot of us lost ourselves in our relationships, lost ourselves in our careers. This is an opportunity for us to take that back. And not take it, but to receive. Now, if you're feeling like you be overly hard on yourself, maybe you're oversensitive to judgment of others, as I've mentioned, create an affirmation and let this be your conversational affirmation. Let this be your comeback. Let this be a statement that you use to neutralize the polarization that we are being triggered into having. The less people participate in polarization, the more we anchor the new earth, this 5D consciousness, love-based way of being versus ego-based way of being. Whatever comes up, you have the power to acknowledge it, confront it, which allows you to release it, energy in motion. And when you observe the way that this statement shifts the energy in conversations, the more you use it, the more you may be around someone who triggers you, the more practice you get. And one day you'll look up and you have done it so many times that you no longer have to consciously decide to. It just becomes a baseline response to external criticism, judgment, confrontation, and conflicts. So I hope that helps someone who was wondering about that. Taking time to take space for yourself without worrying about what other people think. That's definitely the move. You're unique, and so are they. Nobody has to be wrong. And once you do this, once you learn how to hold space for yourself, your boundaries are going to shift. The more you add value to who you are and invest the time in yourself, the more boundaries will be required to protect the work that you're doing on yourself. Everybody don't need to like you, And a lot of us, our desire to be liked overrides our ability to love ourselves, to be loved. And we don't have to sacrifice that anymore. Your awareness is growing. A lot of women are going to notice that they're just not able to settle for less. The more you know your worth, the more you see the contribution that you're making in your family, your life, your job, your career, the world, communities, the more aware you become of the areas where there aren't any boundaries. And sometimes we don't create boundaries or enforce them because we want to be liked. But do you want to be liked at the expense of being lost? And this is what will help a lot of us to regain our sense of self, to not feel like we have to turn into a, reactor, a nuclear reactor to these triggered moments that occur, and you become more confident because you notice, I'm allowing people to perceive me however they want to without it affecting my mood. And that alone builds up confidence. There could be some pitfalls again. We don't want to get into a space where we're isolating ourselves trying to avoid conflict, because some conflict is inevitable. And remember, some discord is necessary for truth to be grounded and anchored in your experience. So we want to work on not being oversensitive, okay, overreactionary, and not being insensitive, right? So that's the balance that this Libra season is bringing to us. If you're feeling trapped, because I know a lot of us, we kind of feel trapped in our situations, our financial, circumstance, our career, our relationships, even just our place in the world. Sometimes you can feel like where you are is a prison that you cannot get out of. How about we PRP it? Let's put a positive reframe on feeling trapped, right? Let's see how creative we can be, how many ways we can perceive where we are in the present that's positive. Let this just be an exercise. Turn it into a game, leaning into that playful energy. Playful energy is very feminine, and the inner child loves to play. So inner child healing can come as a result of you tapping into your inner child's creativity, which is the magic within us all, and just shifting your perception around where you are. And you might notice that the prison that you feel trapped in is actually protection. That the bars that you might see around you, that the tape, the stop signs, the caution, like when they're doing construction work, and you see all this stuff letting you know the construction is happening. Well, what if you see whatever predicaments you're in as construction, right? Again, a lot of us are noticing our unconscious patterns and the reality that it created for us. So by having compassion for where you are, shifting your awareness, if you're into home decor, you could plush that prison out. I mean, you can get you a nice soft rug. It's a lot that you can do. You can trick it out, and just lean into that creativity. Allow your inner child to participate in your awakening experience. And you might be pleasantly surprised at the outcome of shifting your focus in this way. So if this period is challenging and overwhelming, and for a lot of us who are very empathic, every human has empathy on one level or another. And I'm sure some people would say, honey, please, I know somebody got zero empathy and they just in full narcissistic mode all the time. They don't care about nothing but themselves. If you have noticed that, there's probably an area within you that you aren't kind to your own self, that you aren't empathetic to yourself. So, I know how overwhelming it can be as an empath. And in the guidebook that I am creating and all of the content that I'm creating, I'm integrating what I have learned as an empath into my self-mastery, personal development, and spiritual practices. Because in my eyes, you can't have success if you take away either of these. All of these are required. They're all necessary. So be kind to yourself, okay? Look for areas where you tell yourself, I should. That's always a clue to you being overly hard on yourself. As long as you are doing the best that you can, then what your heart desires is going to come. So you don't have to compare yourself to other people, even allow other people to tell you what you should be doing. You don't have to allow that to put pressure on you. You can shift your perception and say, but I'm doing the best I can. What I, feel I should be doing if I was supposed to be doing it, I'd be doing it. And because I'm not doing it right now, I trust me. I trust the process. I trust that where I am is exactly where I am supposed to be. Okay. So we're going to feel the urge to take action. Remember, Aries is like action oriented, sometimes even without thinking. So take some time with yourself, think things through, again, be less reactive. And new possibilities will unfold just from you using the tips that I'm sharing with you now. And if you see something that's not serving you anymore, it's not serving your truth, follow your intuition. Take some action, make a leap of faith. You don't have to shake it up too much, but just micro goals, to move in a direction your intuition is showing you. So if you feel like you maybe have outgrown a job, instead of just quitting abruptly, start searching for what resonates with you and what you would like to do for a living. And start gathering some of the characteristics, some of the traits of that person and integrate them into yourself. If you're working a job and let's just say you're a nurse, but you really want to be a healthy, recipe cook, then say, okay, I will have dinner and I'm going to cook something that I would like to cook, something that I see myself doing in the future as a business, a way of making money. I'm going to do it for myself right now, or for my family, or for my friends. So this is taking action. This is you following through with what your heart is feeling and integrating it into your daily life. Okay? So these are some of the tips that, you can try out. And again, our intuition is heightened right now, So if you're observing anything and intuition is telling you one thing, but your intellect is telling you another, finding the balance between those two. What's going to be most beneficial for you, right? We don't want to be reckless, We want to take our time. Sometimes Aries can cause us to want to move and take action now. So again, breathe your way through this. Be the thermostat in your life, not the thermometer. Don't allow other people to set your mood and your temperature. You set the mood. You set the temperature. You set up your environment to be what resonates with you as best as you can to capacity of wherever you are. Because putting pressure on ourselves is the opposite of feminine energy. And because this energy is ushering us into a more feminine way of being, this is a great time to lean into more ease, effortlessness. Give yourself a few hours to be what you probably would perceive to be lazy. Give yourself the sovereign space to do that. If you intuitively feel like that, slowing down is what you need, but the inner critic is like, oh, you can't be doing that. Idle mind is a devil's playground. If you don't work, you don't eat. And it keeps us in this rat race of doing, and we're not being. This full moon is about being, not doing. So Aries can have you out there being a little bit reactive, but again, you have the capacity to be the thermostat and set the temperature, set the mood within your temple. Okay? If you have a tendency to pour your energy into other people, what they want from you, what they think, afraid that they won't see value in you, because that's usually the subconscious fear. When we overcompensate, when we overgive, overextend ourselves, agree to doing things that we really don't have the energy to do or don't want to do. If that's been happening, and you probably are noticing some unconscious patterns that could be categorized as codependent. I have videos all about that here and on Patreon. So check those out, and check out the community tab. I often post about codependency there as well. But you aren't a victim to your circumstance, and if pulling back how much you invest in other people changes the dynamic, it might be something that's just meant to take on a new form. And there are some people who may not be as big of, have as, a big role in our lives as they have had before. That's okay too. So this is the state of allowing, right? And investing that energy into yourself. Sometimes when we're doing that, we attract people who often want something from us instead of wanting the best for us. So if you give, and it's not being reciprocated, and so many women been doing that in our relationships, then your body is going to let you know. Your emotions are going to let you know. Something will eventually happen to slow you down. So take care of yourself. Take care of your health, your mental health. Do what you can. And again, allow people the sovereign right to perceive you however they want to. This is freedom. This is liberation. When I stopped caring so much about how people felt about me, my self-healing journey transformed into something that created confidence for myself. And I realized that by overgiving, oversharing, overcompensating all the time, not knowing when to pull away, I was training people to be narcissistic in my life. I was offering myself as a living sacrifice, being a martyr, and I wasn't treating myself like I was important. But I expected other people to treat me like I was valuable and important. But I wasn't doing it. So it's okay. And, if people change the way they feel about you because you're not giving as much. And it's also okay to let, especially our partners, to let them know what I have been giving to you up to this point hasn't been reciprocated. And if I continue to give to you what is not being reciprocated, it could become a breeding ground for resentment. So in me reinvesting that energy into myself, I actually become a better version of me, which means you get to experience the new me that I'm creating. And that's a gift that I'm giving to myself, but also offering to you instead of offering myself as a sacrifice to you. And if our relationship is meant to be, it will be. And there is nothing that we can do that's going to destroy it. I trust the process. I trust the Spirit has not abandoned us, and we have support. And I hope that you're able to do the same. Right there. You have an extraordinary amount of power available simply by shifting your perspective and giving meaning to what you're observing that is service to you and not a disservice to you. So feel your feelings. Be with them. Allow others to feel theirs. And one thing I will say, all of this goddess energy that's coming in, these archetypal energies that teach us about feminine consciousness and embodiment, one thing for sure, women right now who are really doing this healing work, we are the first generation of women to reclaim our power, to liberate ourselves from the bondage, the shackles, and the chains that were placed on us by a non-human force on this planet that feeds off of desperation, suffering, misery. We're not feeding that anymore. And if we do, we feel terrible afterwards, because we are not like the generations of women before us, especially the age of Pisces. We're being raised and initiated into higher value of ourselves. And with that, relationships will take on new forms. No matter what form, no matter how the dynamic changes, it is no less sacred. It is no less necessary. Because if it wasn't necessary, you would not be having the experience. And once you learn the lessons from the experience, then the necessity of that experience lessens. And this is how we clear karmic contracts. This is how we invite our dharmic timeline of experiencing from our heart's desires, having more experiences that are based in love and not ego, that are based in triumph and not trauma. This is being offered to us now. And women will be protesting for their wants, needs, and desires. They will be shifting their boundaries to protect the work that they're doing on themselves. And the more love we give to ourselves, the less fucks we're going to give to other people. And by doing that, we're actually setting ourselves up to experience more authentic relationships. So we don't have to force anything. We don't have to make something happen. What is meant to be will be. I hope that this spoke to you. And if you're wondering how you can connect with me outside of this platform, I'm going to put the links in the description. Feel free to look around the website. It's like an ascension. It's like an ascension library. So much information there. Many different spiritual beliefs, practices that I work with. Many different archetypal energies of consciousness. A lot of metaphysical lessons. I mean, everything that comes across my table of experience that served me, I offer it to you. You are the living embodiment of liberation. And if there are any males who actually stay to the end of this and listen to this, I want to celebrate you and congratulate you, because this isn't an easy conversation. And for a lot of men who have unprocessed trauma and who have wounds that they were unaware of, that are being made available to see, watching women be so radically different than your mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, aunts, even exes, it is not a comfort zone. But growth does not happen in a comfort zone. And I'm not speaking from a space of what I read or heard about. This is coming from someone who is really, 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 really inspired and motivated by all of my experiences. Dying 2 times and having to choose to come back into my body despite what I have experienced up to this point shifted my capacity to contact different spiritual dimensions in a way where I'm able to be in service to others in a really, really specific and different way. And I know that we have been socially engineered to see each other as the problem. I know that the only way for the powers that can dominate us is to cause division. Because if they divide, they can conquer. However, consider this. Women, a lot of women, and I don't care how she seems or appears to be and what judgments we like to pass around, because that's the new thing now. People love to criticize women about what they're doing, how they dress, how they talk, how they wear their hair. It's too much. It's too much judgment and criticism happening centered around the feminine. And this creates negative karma. By training yourself to see the pain that women have dressed up and sprinkled glitter on, because we did not want to be perceived as weak. We did not want to be perceived as rebellious or somebody who just caused trouble and chaos. This is a really deep-seated fear for us, because at one point we were burned at the stake for being healers, for knowing how to use herbs and nature and seasons and the cycles and the elements. That's ingrained in us. That's written on our cellular imprints. So the fear of upsetting our partners because our beliefs, our values are shifting, who we identify as being now, the fear of how our partners will react to that creates more suffering. It creates dis-ease. It creates cancer. It creates autoimmune illnesses, reproductive issues, cysts, fibroids, tumors. Women have suffered in silence. And a lot of the work that we do, it doesn't get celebrated because it's invisible. It's difficult to see something outside of you that you haven't identified in yourself. And a lot of men have not identified a healthy sense of their own feminine. So it's difficult to see us as sacred. But I want you to know that whenever a woman had sex with a man and her body was saying no, maybe it was saying yes, but her heart wasn't. Maybe she is feeling deficient of connection, depth, embrace, unconditional love. Maybe she's not feeling those things. Women, feminine energy is all about emotions. And to be in that energy as long as we have, ever since the matrilineal significance of creating our communities was taken away from us, we have had to bear the brunt. We have had to pick up where a lot of males dropped the ball. We have had to have children by men who had broken our hearts because we were afraid to have an abortion or didn't believe in it, or we didn't want the man to feel away. Like, women have held space for men for so long, to the point where we don't even know how to hold space for ourselves. We're having to relearn that. So if your woman is spending more time to herself, not talking as much, maybe not acting the same, maybe not greeting you when you come home from work with a big hug and a big smile, it may not be directed to you to hurt you. It simply may be her learning how to be with her own trauma, to hold space for herself. The most loving thing that men can do is to learn how to protect the sacred space that the woman is creating for herself, even if he does not understand nor agree. A lot of men did not develop emotionally. And because y'all were given so much without actually having to work for it, everything in this world was set up for y'all to win. And what happened was your feminine got ignored, repressed, denied, dismissed, neglected, and rejected. And the woman had no choice but to do the same, to navigate a world built all around masculine, egotistical, logical, reasoning, left brain energy. And I know the pain of being obligated to please a partner, even while you're in pain. I know that a lot of men who may be hurting their women don't know that they are, don't know why, don't know how to stop it, don't know how to change it. And in that space, you may begin to feel like the victim. You may begin to feel like she's hurting you. She's doing something to hurt you. And this will lead to you unconsciously, subconsciously sabotaging her journey because you feel like a victim in this experience. You create your own reality. You can hold that space for yourself. Practice doing that. Because if your woman is changing in a way that causes you to feel like you're not important, as if you're inadequate, as if you're not good enough, those feelings are a reflection of an unhealthy, insecure attachment. A woman, whatever she's doing, does not dictate your mood. And if what she's doing is what determines your mood, that means that you're not in control of yourself. That means that she is in control of you, and not because she's trying to control you, but you have given your power away. You have made her responsible for emotionally regulating you, for reassuring you, for making you feel at peace with yourself and who you are. That's not her responsibility. And unfortunately, a lot of us were raised to take on the responsibility of others. And because we have noticed the areas that men have not developed emotional mastery, we try to fill in the gaps and we try to handle it all. And so whatever grace she has offered you, this is the time now where you can offer that to her. And again, anytime you feel like what someone else is doing is creating your reality, that's a victim mindset. And it comes as a result of stress. It leads to being in survival mode, which means that you're most likely to fight, flee, freeze, or fawn. And neither of those are based in love. Neither of those are directed by the heart. That's ego. That's not love. And before I go, I'm going to say one other thing. Because this energy right now is calling for this. And for those who take heed to these messages, for those who are witnessing women be liberated from things that have really, really held us back from being the best version of ourselves, Not only can you clear karmic debt by using this information in your life, but you can actually step more into the version of you that is a curse breaker, not a curse sustainer. Okay? So I'm going to read something to you because I've been talking about this for a while, but the meaning that we assign to sex, the purpose, what we learned about sex up to this point, it's very trauma-inducing, to say the least. Over 51% of couples' long-term relationship and marriages right now, since the lockdowns and the pandemic, aren't having sex as much. That's not a life sentence. It's a part of this ascension process. And if you go and look at statistics of what's happening with women within their reproductive health, you'll see the connections to the dynamics in our relationships and the dis-ease that it causes. So if a man feels like his woman is responsible for pleasing him sexually to the point of not being able to be aware of how much pain maybe she has been in and hiding, then you're sustaining the curses. And if you are a chosen one, you came to break them, not make them. So compassion for what women have had to deal with. Compassion for what men have had to deal with. But women are more inclined to be empathic and compassionate, forgiving than men are because of the toxic societal philosophies of life, beliefs, monotheistic religious beliefs. So many of these things are being brought to our attention so that we can shift it. This ain't just for us. This is for the generations, hundreds and hundreds of years that will either benefit or be harmed by the way we operate. So I'm going to share a statistic with you that I went over in the Cosmic Isis Papers lecture. And it's this. Sexual safety is something most women never had. Many women feel obligated to have sex. However, 78% of women have autoimmune disease and reproductive issues soar into the 80th percentile. Now the question I ask is, how comfortable is sex for millions of women? Not just due to their partner's ability to create safe space, but imagine what the body has been going through. Nevertheless, we were taught to satisfy our partners even if our body says no, or he'll go and get it from somewhere else. This basically is marital rape. This is basically an obligation that has been put in place by the so-called powers that be to keep women in a cycle of feeling as if they do not have sovereignty over their own body for fear of the consequences of saying no. And I know rape is a strong word, but I am not here to make men comfortable. I'm here to show you a perspective that a lot of us really will benefit from opening our awareness to see. Anytime a woman has a sense of obligation so strong that she will ignore discomfort in her own body, in her own mind, in her own emotions, that is a form of sexual abuse that we took on as our duty and responsibility. And where has that brought us? What has that gotten us? Because based on these statistics, it has not brought us to a healthy place. Okay? So, I would like to invite any of the women listening to this to book a discovery call with me where I will coach you for free on some of the things that you may be dealing with as you're going through your spiritual ascension process. This Sacred Sister Circle that I'm putting together is revolutionary. And it's something that I didn't complete in my past life because I was killed for meeting with women and teaching women to harness their feminine power. And as most of us know, this is something that the church was so afraid of that led to them creating all of these requirements for how we should be in relationships that have only taken us deeper into a toxic culture where the demands that are placed on women do not take into account what we are going through and have been going through. On a spiritual level, there are guardians standing in the gate space of the gateway of the gods, and they're saying, no, no more. You're hurting your descendants if you continue like this. So for my men out there, this is not about you. And to think or feel that this has some type of element of punishment or, women are just being difficult for no reason, all of those things point to scarred feminine and scarred masculine energy within yourself. It says more about you than it does about her. And your power is when you focus on you. Your disempowerment is when you focus on others. So if you are a man, you don't have any idea of what it takes to be a woman in this world. And that's all right, because most men did not have a father who taught them these things. But what's not okay is abuse in any form, on any level of the spectrum. And if we are willing participants in trauma reenactments that we have painted with fake gold paint and called them relationships, then what was the purpose in you awakening? If you were going to try to hold on to the 3D Matrix programs of how things should be. All links will be in the description. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway. And I would love to hear your opinion as well, because it does matter. All perspectives matter, and we can all learn something from one another. Namaste. Namaste. One love. Ashe.